I think that's another big misconception a lot of veterans have is, well, I didn't go to war, I didn't get hurt, I didn't get shot, but now here I am 20, 30 years later, and I have sleep apnea or, maybe possibly PTSD or something like that, and now they're getting into it. So I always encourage veterans to just explore, ask the questions, and inquire about those benefits that you could possibly be entitled to right now.
Hey, family, welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your host, Rodney Butler, and today we have another one of our Veterans Benefits series. And so for those of you who are avid followers of the Black Man's Roundtable, our one and only special guest that we have on today is no stranger to you at all. You have seen her on this platform several times. She is our resident expert on veterans benefits. I always say, if Ramona can't get it for you, it cannot get done. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to the former training director of the Georgia Department of Veterans Service, Miss Ramona Roper. How you doing today, Ramona?
I'm doing good, Rodney. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely fantastic. And as always, just very glad to, have you on. We have many, many, many veterans who follow the Black Man's Roundtable, and they are always looking forward to, what you have to say on the platform. So with that said, we usually do, you and I, we usually do a webinar kind of style deal. But, I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. I know that number one, our veterans out there love hearing your great voice, but also, I got an indication that they want to see you more interactive versus, the whole slide presentation thing. And so it's like, you know what? I need to treat Ramona just like I do all of my other very special guests and just have a conversation about some of our benefits. So without further ado, Ramona, I'm going to start jumping right into this. We have about 5 different topics that you wanted to make sure that got hit today. These topics are also very, very important to, as we did our survey, to our listeners, to our followers. And so we're going to get started. And our first big category we're going to go under, we're going to ask 3 topics. We're going to talk about 3 topics under core benefits and eligibility. With the first one being, the first topic being, or the first question kind of being, what are the most underutilized VA benefits?
Wow. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Rodney.
Absolutely.
And
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
so glad to be here. Like you said, I am the former training director. I decided to resign from the Georgia Department of Veterans Service to pursue a different avenue of advocacy for veterans in the private sector. And so, with that being entailed, now I'm a little freer to do what I want without, anybody, holding me to a different accord, if you will. So,
Exactly.
but underutilized veterans benefits. I think the ones that are underutilized are the ones that you don't apply for. Okay. One thing veterans need to understand, veterans, and put it out there. Number one, VA is not going to put any commercials out there. They're not going to tell you to come and visit. Most of VA is about word of mouth, one vet to another vet. But the benefits that you're not receiving are the ones you don't apply for. So, of course, one of the biggest benefits, of course, is service-connected disability compensation. That is basically when a benefit can be linked, a disability or condition can be directly linked or secondarily linked to your active duty military service. So you know me, I like to use myself as a guinea pig as the
Yes, ma'am.
example.
Do it.
I was a 82nd Airborne paratrooper who
Who?
got hurt on a jump. It started as one leg and eventually came up to probably about 85 to 90% of my body, mind, and soul. And so, therefore, uh, even though I was med boarded and I got out, I still didn't know what VA entailed. And of course, going to the VA hospitals and health facilities, I was only seeing one side of it until one person opened my eyes to the benefit side. And so, again, when it comes to applying for those benefits, don't let just word of mouth or wait until something actually catastrophically happens. I think that's another big misconception a lot of veterans have is, oh, well, I didn't go to war. I didn't get hurt. I didn't get shot. But now here I am 20, 30 years later, and I have sleep apnea or, maybe possibly PTSD or something like that. And now they're getting into it. So I always encourage veterans to just explore, ask the questions, and inquire about those benefits that you could possibly be entitled to right now. Um, we do have, when I got out in the day of the dinosaurs, I always tell my kids, I got out in 92. Um, and that was right after the first Gulf War. And even then, we still were not directed to go to VA.
Yep.
You get out, you go to work and raise your family, and that's it. But now they have transition centers on post, and so a lot of the newer veterans, I would say those in the mid to late 2000s to present day, they are actually afforded, you know, classes, if you will, to instruct them on how to transition into the VA system. And so those are the benefits that you want to definitely capture the sooner rather than later.
Right. And is there would you say that for certain, maybe groups of veterans, whether it is, women veteran, whether it is, black or ethnic veterans, or whatever other protected class veteran that may be underutilized, or maybe ones that you want to stress to them that they need to really look at because of their gender or ethnicity?
Definitely, definitely. Of course, being an African American female, that
Exactly,
is
exactly.
number one. Number one. I went to the local service organizations, VFW and American Legion here in Athens, Georgia, years ago, and I was like, you know what? I don't see any faces like mine here.
Exactly.
What do you do to advocate for women as well as African American women? And no one could give me an answer. And even here I am as of today, no one still can give me an answer. Um, it is, I think it's tragic, number one, uh, that we are not defined. Um, and I'm gonna kind of jump off topic. It's kind of, I had
No, go ahead. Go
a
ahead.
discussion a couple of years ago with one of the legislatures over under the Gold Dome, and I was asked, well, you're a woman veteran. How do you feel about those tags, the women veteran tags? I said, I don't like them, and I'll never put one on my vehicle.
Hmm.
And he was shocked. And I said, look, we as women, we fought the same. We went through the same trainings, the whole 9 yards. I said, to be equal and accepted as a veteran, as a service member. I said, and now you want to separate us and define us by a tag? I don't think so. I said, and where does that stop? You're going to have, the Latino veterans or the LGBTQ plus, where does it stop? We are veterans,
Right.
period, point blank, simple. Um, but I would like to really hone in on African American females. When I even go to the VA health facilities, very, very seldom, other than to see staff, do I ever see any female veterans, especially those that look like me, in the lobby, walking down the halls. I see that there are people working. I'm not sure of their veteran status, but I see a lot of, African American females actually working in the health facilities. But as patients, as veterans sitting there, no, I don't see them at all. And I go to women's health there at the VA, And so I would encourage females specifically, your platform reaches a lot of male veterans, and male veterans need, either you're going home to a veteran, everybody knows a veteran, whether it be male, female, transgender, LGBTQI, Z, whatever. Um, Tell them, encourage them to enroll in VA healthcare. I helped a friend of mine just this morning, um, who just got a brand new rating of 80% and get enrolled in VA healthcare. And do you know that I had to jump on the phone as an advocate, um, to tell this lady that, look, this veteran is only trying, he's enrolled, he's eligible. What does it take to get a primary care appointment? Well, you have to go through XYZ. I said, can't you do it? Can you not send an email or a message to the scheduler of that particular clinic, which is an outpatient clinic, and get him scheduled? And oh, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. So yeah, I had to put that hat back on, if you will.
Yeah.
But all I could think was, imagine being an older veteran. That's another I would think underserved
Class.
demographic.
Yeah, demographic.
Older Black veterans. Can you imagine being 70 or 80 years old and don't know how to work a computer, or don't have anyone there that can sit there and tell these people, I need help? And so that's another demographic that is very important. That we're losing these veterans, the Korean War veterans. We've just I think we've just lost a lot of World War II. So now the Korean veterans are coming in. Vietnam veterans, I think, are kind of taken care of, but we still need to encourage our churches, our centers, council on agings, touch and reach out to these veterans in the community that help, to get them help, take them to these facilities and inquire about those benefits. It's a shame that my 18 years of service with the Georgia Department of Veterans Service, a lot of veterans of color did not come in, or the families didn't come in until the veteran was deceased. And that veteran could have, and a lot of them were entitled to benefits prior to their death. And it shouldn't take someone getting, terminally ill or falling completely destitute before you come in and get those rightfully earned benefits.
Great, great. Well, I definitely appreciate that because, we definitely have a targeted kind of audience,
Mhm.
hence the name of the show, Black Man's Roundtable,
Mhm.
obviously. And I'm definitely glad you pointed those things out. And even with the Black women, or women in general, but
Mhm.
especially, the Black women that follow
Yes.
this podcast. And so, but I, you know, like I look at, I'm glad I'm starting to, I guess it's refreshing, if I don't know, that might not be the right word to use, to
Mhm.
see some of the Black females in the
Mhm.
military, that were harassed in many kind of ways, not just sexual, that were
Mhm.
harassed in many kind of ways, are
Mhm.
starting to, say, no, I deserve to be compensated. I deserve to be made whole, you
Yes.
know, for that,
Right.
so I'm glad to see
And
that.
it is one of those things, and you kind of touched on one of the hot button topics of military sexual trauma. Um, that does not just include a physical attack. It could also be harassment.
Right.
I myself, I was sexually harassed by my NCOIC for years until I fought. Yeah, I
Mm.
physically fought and got in some trouble. But hey, John Lewis said get in some good trouble. He didn't bother me anymore. But and a CID investigation also helped.
Yeah.
But it was tough. I was explaining to someone just yesterday about my trials and tribulations in jump school. And yeah, those defined who I was. I survived it. But at the same time, there's a lot of trust issues there when it comes to relationships past. Um, that you sometimes you can actually have flashbacks to your most traumatic period in there. A lot of veterans and men Military sexual trauma is not just defined to
That's right.
women.
That's right.
I've done a lot, and during my tenure, I did a lot of claims for military sexual trauma for men that were successful. Um, One of the things a lot of people don't seem to understand, an MST is not a definitive diagnosis. That is your stressor. That is the catalyst to start. You still have to have a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD,
And Ramona, do
when
you
fighting.
have that? Do you have that acronym for MST?
Military sexual trauma.
Okay, got it. Just wanted to
Yeah.
double tap on it. Got it.
So, but that is as the VA defines it, as a stressor. And so, when filing claims, I would see a lot of times a novice person or the veteran themselves would file for PTSD and then MST. So no, MST is not an actual diagnosis. That is the stressor. Now, when filing that, and kind of getting back into the weeds on a little bit on filing, um, is if a veteran knows the name of the assailant, then that needs to be put on that statement. It During my time frame, we didn't have those reporting forms, or I think they have formal and informal complaints now with the SARC sharps. And don't ask me about those acronyms because again, uh, I didn't have them. But yeah, it has to be an actual event or period. Now, again, thinking back to when I was in, the VA looks at certain key points of activity in your file, either in your personnel record or your health record, to define whether or not they can find pointers to substantiate an MST. So if a veteran says, "Hey, I was assaulted or sexually harassed during this time," they could have been a stellar soldier during that time frame, and then all of a sudden, after this incident or event, then they decline. And those are markers that they look for. Maybe there was weight gain, maybe there was a couple of visits for STDs or things like that. So there's certain markers and things like that that they would look for in establishing a claim that was not reported. But to also keep in mind, VA looks at mental disabilities as one, meaning it could be called anything. It could be called bipolar. It could be called schizophrenia, depression, PTSD, but they're all going to be rated the same, and you can only get one. So that's something that people don't seem to understand. You can be treated within VA or your healthcare for say depression, anxiety, PTSD, and bipolar, but you're only going to get one,
Right.
even though they're all under the same rating umbrella. Does
Got
that
it.
make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go down to some common misconceptions veterans have about eligibility. I know there's a boatload of them.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not a VSO, but Ramona, I've heard them all about these misconceptions. It's like, who
Yep.
told you? It's like, who told you that, bro? You know,
Right.
but there are a lot of them. But I definitely want for you to hit on those ones that I know you have heard time and time again.
Well,
Common misconceptions.
right. One of the biggest misconceptions is you had to go to war in order to be eligible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, no, you didn't have to go to war to be eligible for benefits, and that would be either healthcare and or benefits. So let's for those new in the audience, there are three lanes of VA. There is VBA, Veterans Benefits Administration, and then there's VHA, Veterans Health Administration, and then there is NCA, the National Cemetery Administration. And of course, they all kind of work together. But no, you don't have to go to war. Now, under healthcare, if you are at least 10% disabled, service connected disabled, then you're eligible for healthcare. You are eligible for healthcare. However, they will still bill your insurance carrier for anything that you're not service connected for. Now, if you're 50% or more service connected, then all of your health care can be incurred by the VA, your actual care, for free, except dental. If you're 100% service connected disabled, then yes, you are entitled to dental. But there's those misconceptions. Um, let's see. You have to have served. Oh my
I,
goodness. It
Ramona, I've heard that another one I've heard is that if you didn't retire,
correct.
if then you're not
Very
eligible.
good.
Yep,
Yeah.
I got you.
If
I'm
you
telling you,
didn't,
I've heard them
yeah.
too.
And the funny thing is, I'm sitting here and I'm not, I can regurgitate this, but I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, what else have I heard? But yeah, you must be a military retiree in order to receive that. No, you do not.
Yep.
Um, the biggest one that always kind of comes out, reservists and National Guard. Now those are some hairs that get split in so many different ways.
Mhm.
Number one, Reserve National Guard. If you were federally activated, not state, federally activated, and you fulfilled your obligation, then yeah, you're good. You are now deemed a veteran for VA purposes. State activations are completely different because those are ordered by the governor of whatever state and not the president. So you have to be very, very careful with that. However, yes, some reservists and National Guardsmen are entitled to VA benefits. And again, I'm not going to get into all of that because that is literally like, trying to get off a 285. There's so much
Yes.
there
Yep.
to unclog, and every situation is completely different. So, but yeah, that's another one. However, if you did not, say for instance, guard a reserve, no federal activation, no line of duty investigations to establish a service connected disability, then no, 9 times out of 10, they are not going to be eligible for health care, or even, I hate to say it, under the Title 38 USCS, which is the United States Code of whatever. It is defined very specifically what will define you as an eligible veteran for VA purposes. Um, and so it gets very convoluted there. Now, the one biggest thing is if a person shows up at a VA hospital or clinic that is in a mental health crisis, they have to by law go ahead and see you. And that kind of falls under the Compass Act. We've talked about that. Compass Act, I forgot exactly what year it was enacted. I want to say 2009, 10, something like that. But if you have a veteran that is having a mental health crisis, you get them either to a local hospital and or the VA hospital, and let especially a civilian hospital, let them know that, hey, I am a veteran, or whomever escorted you to that hospital. Make sure that they inform the medical staff that that veteran is a veteran, and to please bill the VA. Once he or she is stabilized, then they can transport them, excuse me, to the VA, and the hospital will bill the VA directly from there. And that goes into a very specific timeline. So it has to be within 24 hours. Now, another thing, and kind of touching on that, is a lot of 100%ers, a lot of veterans think, oh, I fell and broke my leg in the yard. Uh, I can just go to the local hospital and they'll bill the VA. No, 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 no. Unless you are in a life-threatening emergency and you happen to have an ambulance called, and you go to a hospital, you have a heart attack, they got to get you over there. In a car wreck, they got to get you over there. Then they definitely, whoever has to inform the VA. I myself, I'm 100% excuse me, service connected disabled, and I'm highly allergic to bees. And you come in my house, there's an EpiPen in every drawer at a door. So in the event if I got stung, um, that is life threatening. So yeah, 911 should be called. I get to a hospital, they stabilize me, hopefully can save me. Then of course the VA can be billed as long as you call them. But for something that they feel, a broken toe, a shoulder, whatever, you should be able to get to a hospital, a VA facility, and then the VA, but they won't pay for it. you you go over to Grady with a broke ankle, they're not going to pay for it.
Exactly. And I want to kind of go back a little bit to not to make it too political at all,
Hmm.
but when you talked about the federalizing National Guard troops,
Right.
so immediately, because I kind of know about the rule, I don't know, but like you said, there's so much nuance to that
Hmm.
that that's an entire podcast episode in and of itself.
It is.
But I do know it's very nuanced, but I also know that federalizing National Guardsmen, National Guard troops
Hmm.
versus the state,
Right.
activating them
Hmm.
is quite different as far as eligibility and VA stuff is concerned. So I say that to
Right.
say, with this current administration kind of just, going over governors' head, governors kind of know what they should and, not be doing.
Right.
And also the VA kind of started raising their eyebrows like, wait a minute, and understand that if
We're not
anything
ready for this
happened, we're,
influx.
we're not ready for that influx. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So it's just a thing that, again, not to politicize this, but it's just a thing that, that there is a lot of nuance when it come down to, VA eligibility,
Right.
and National Guard, Army Reserve. I mean, the reserve component,
Hmm.
the regular component. All those things are, all those things come into play. So I just
It,
wanted to,
it's all intertwined, and like I said, sometimes, and eh, let's kind of jump to VA disability compensation. Now, I always tell people there's a small wiggle room, very, very small wiggle room. And I actually helped a veteran not too long ago that never, he was a reservist, never deployed. However, he was a diesel mechanic in the reserves. Did that, I want to say, 9 years, and wound up having prostate cancer. Wound up having prostate cancer. Who knew? But I did some studies and did a little digging, and guess what? Prostate cancer can actually be associated with diesel exposure. Okay. And so we filed it, and I sent enough studies. And it can't just be a doctor saying, "Oh yeah, Rodney, your prostate cancer is from your diesel exposure." You have to, advocates should do a little digging. If you want to advocate and represent a veteran, then you need to do it as if you're doing it for yourself. And that's the way I've always done it. And I wound up finding 4 or 5 different studies that were done, some overseas, some by the National Health Institute or National Institute of Health. I always get it mixed
yeah,
up. I think it's NIH. But
yes,
anyway,
NIH, yep.
um, and it was confirmed. And right before I left, he was actually granted that prostate cancer. And so those are some of the things that doesn't, and that's why that toxic exposure screening that we kind of touch base on, that's why that is so very important. I will tell any veteran, reserve and National Guard, if you did some time, especially our active duty folks, in healthcare, do you have to be actively enrolled to get the screening? No, you don't. But it would be advisable for those veterans, eligible veterans, to go ahead and at least enroll in VA healthcare to get that toxic screening. Okay. I myself, I was S1. I was a personnel specialist in the Army, but excuse me, I was also a paratrooper. So I spent many hours on a flight line. Um, I would go to the motor pool, not that I necessarily PMCS the vehicle, but and I was around generators, and let's face it, we all had to go through the gas chamber.
Yep.
So, being stationed at Fort McClellan, Alabama, I've talked about Fort McClellan in previous uh, podcast, that it was a toxic waste dump down there. So, and guess what? There was Agent Orange, Blue, White, Green, Pink, and Purple down at good old Fort McClellan. So, just because you did not deploy to, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, whatever, you had some good old homegrown toxic stuff that you were exposed to right here in the
Yeah.
United States during your tenure, no matter what. So, if you were a cook, you're probably around propane gas and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Get that screening.
Yep.
Just because you don't have anything right now that is physically or metabolically wrong with you doesn't mean in 10 or 20 or 50 years that you won't have it.
Yep.
And that all could come back down to your exposure to what you did every day in the military. So that exposure, that toxic screening is not just for those that deployed. It's for everyday, everybody, men, women, the whole 9 yards. Get it
And,
done.
and you know what, Ramona, remember, everywhere you were exposed to something, or
Yes.
had the potential of being exposed to something,
Hmm.
if you saw an MSDS sheet, and everywhere you go in the Army, you see a
Yes.
MSDS sheet, right? That literally is letting you know
Hmm.
that there's a very potential that you are being exposed to something, but also anybody, any
Hmm.
paratrooper, who been stationed on
Hmm.
Fort Bragg, 82nd Airborne Division HUA,
Cool.
that when you walk up onto that C-130, C-141, and you do the rear, and you go rear up into that aircraft to get ready to jump on Sicily, whatever DZ out there,
Say it.
and
Say
you
it.
are breathing in so much of
Whew.
that diesel fuel from that raggedy C-130. If it ain't leaking, it ain't flying.
Exactly. Well,
So
and I just thought of something that might sound very trivial. We all use those raggedy camo sticks. And just about every time after a jump, like you said, you're out in the field, Market Square, the whole 9 yards, you're sitting out in the woods for 2, 3 weeks, you hadn't had a good bath or whatever. But those camo sticks would kill people's skin. I have
mhm.
actually seen it. I don't know what was in it. I didn't have a problem with them, but yeah,
we
so
know it. We
even
know it
that
had to
right
have
there,
something in it for it to stay on your skin that long.
that long, yeah. And I mean, even when you use soap and water, you still got to go
Yep.
get the alcohol and try to
Sweating,
take that
all
stuff off.
doing creeks, crossing creeks and all kind of stuff. That stuff is still on your face.
But
You know.
one of the things that I want to kind of jump to is everybody's talking about the Pact Act, and of course that defines those that did deploy or was assigned to certain areas. But again, there's that subcategory that is not really out in the forefront, and that's the toxic exposure risk activity, TERA. We will kill you with some acronyms in the
Acronyms. Oh
military.
yeah. Yes,
But
ma'am.
that TERA, speaking of that, and getting things associated with trying to get disability, I did a claim for a very good friend of mine, another one that he's a Navy retiree. He was an aircraft mechanic. They call them flight attendants or whatever, but he was also an instructor. So a lot of his was around flight decks, all that stuff. And he wound up having diabetes, high blood pressure, which, developed into chronic kidney disease, prostate cancer, and something else. Oh, a condition called hypoparathyroidism. Never had heard of this, but I was going through his treatment records, not his service treatment records, but his just civilian records. And I ran across all this stuff. And again, I like doing research. And again, going to all of these studies, I wound up finding 15 studies for all four of those conditions and sent that into the VA because some things were secondary. So, anemia, secondary to the hypoparathyroidism. Sent all of that stuff in. He got all of those conditions service connected as toxic exposure risk activity, and that was granted, and he's now 100%. I can't say that I'm the best, but like I said, I always treated claims, if this were me, how would I go about this? If I'm this sick or I'm this infirmed, how would I go about that? And that's how I do everything. But um but toxic risk activity also includes hearing loss. So that's how a lot of the reservists and National Guards are going to wind up getting service connected, even at 10%. Tinnitus statutory maximum is 10%. Veteran goes in there and says, my ears have not stopped ringing since I fired that first, weapon on the rifle range. Um, I worked around diesel mechanics, aircraft engines, that kind of stuff. A hearing claim can be deemed as toxic risk activity because that's what you did every day. That's what you worked around. Um, and those are the types of things that are still going to be chronic in nature. I've not yet met a veteran whose ears did not ring. The tinnitus, it is off the charts. Sometimes I'm hearing phones and my kids will be like, "Mom, ain't no phone ringing." I'll be like, "Are you sure? Are
Yep.
you sure?" So tinnitus, yeah, just go in there and tell them my ears have rang ever since I shot a weapon, and they hadn't stopped ringing. Now, the other key to that is don't go out there telling them that you worked on the Delta flight lines when you retired or you got out of the military, or I go duck hunting every Saturday and stuff like that, because then they can't associate it whether it started in the military or is it from here.
Exactly.
So a lot of veterans' testimony in those exams actually get them denied. And so I always, when working with a veteran, I'll tell them, look, you get those exams, you better, your next phone call is to better be to me, and you better call me when it's scheduled and the morning that you go, because I'm going to, tell you to either omit this or, you know, or tell them.
And that's why I say they need to,
Mm-hmm.
before they start running their mouth, they need to be talking to people like Ramona Roper. But anyway, but Ramona, before we get into the importance of accreditation and that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of hit back to on navigating the VA disability rating and appeals.
Right. Mm-hmm.
One thing I want you to kind of talk about, and then obviously kind of expand on it, if you deem necessary, is when we're talking about disability ratings and appeals. There are two things that I hear a lot that I would like for you to talk about a little bit, and that is people say, hey, you're safe for the most part or whatever at
Mm-hmm.
55 years old plus.
Mm-hmm.
And the one where I think a lot of people say, well, if you was 10 consecutive years, and I'm talking about especially the 100% rating,
Right.
rating
Mm-hmm.
ratings, that you don't have to worry about it, falling back to, because anytime, like I know you're going to talk about it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
once you put in any claim, they have the right to go in and look at every
Mm-hmm.
single thing that you've ever claimed and that kind of thing. And you could looking forward to be upgraded, and you can be downgraded. but
Yes, you
but
can.
but they say, hey, 55 plus. I want you to talk about that a little bit,
Okay.
because I'm starting to be around a lot of people who are 55 plus,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you see that. And then the 10 years thing, right? The 10
Yeah.
years consecutive deal of being 100% permanent and total.
Mm-hmm. What we call those are called stabilized or stabilization ratings.
Okay,
Okay.
that's the official. I got it.
Yeah. Stabilized. And it's a little more convoluted than a lot of people think. Oh, I'm 55. They're never going to touch me. Yeah, right. Now, in a sense, the 55 age range or stabilization basically means that you cannot be called in for a routine future. Okay. So, like myself, 56. Yeah. I had to think about that. Uh, I'm 56. I'll be 57 in October, and I've been 100% for 10 years. So technically, no, I'm not going to be called in for any routine futures. However,
Black
however,
Black don't crack. Just want to say that. Go ahead.
well, thank you very much. That's why I wore that ponytail so it pulled my skin just a little tight. But yeah, so in a sense, they're not going to be looking at me. However, the VA has what they call quality review teams. And these guys, you don't have to necessarily have anything open, but it's kind of like, hey, we're just going to pull Rodney Butler's file at random, okay. And they pull it up. Well, let's just look in the VA healthcare and see if Rodney, since getting his 100%, 7 years ago, has been going to VA healthcare. And they'll pull those records over just to verify if the right ratings were issued. It's not that they're going after you, but they want to ensure that the right ratings were issued, the right rules were followed, yada yada. But here, oh well, guess what? Mr. Rodney is 55. He's been service connected for 8 years, and there's not a record on file of him going to a doctor or anything like that. So, that looks a little suspicious that, you were going, and now boom, you got 100% and you're not. Then they could audit and say, hey, we want to at least send you in to, see what's going on. that scenario is kind of rare. But if Rodney decides, yeah, Rodney went to Afghanistan, and now all of a sudden he saw where, I want to put in for tinnitus. I've been 100%, and yeah, he's 55 years old. They're not looking at him. Nobody's archived his file, but Rodney insists, I want this tinnitus on my claim, and now Rodney reopens it. Guess what? Well, yeah, we can add that tinnitus on there, even though that 10% is not going to change that 100% rating. However, Rodney has not been going to his mental health. And so 9 times out of 10, he's not going to mental health. Let's just send him there for an exam to see if that mental health has gotten better, because we don't have any records of treatment here at the VA. And so next thing you know, Rodney's on the phone. Well, I didn't open my claim up, but they're calling me in for a CMP exam. Well, Rodney, they have that right to do that because you reopened your claim. And yes, you might have been either 8 years or 12 years at 100%. You reopen it, you just open Pandora's box for them to go and look for everything. So yes, the 55-year-old rule, if you will, means a routine future cannot be issued. However, unless there's fraud involved, the 10-year rule at 100%, then you pretty much have been secured. In the event you die, your surviving spouse would be automatically entitled to the dependent indemnity compensation or the service-connected death rate. So that's where that comes in. The 20-year rule means that service connection and those ratings are secured. So if you have, say, and not talking just 100%, let's say you have been, say, 40% on a knee, excuse me, since 1992, and all of a sudden you think, well, I want to put in for an increase of that knee, then guess what? They can either, even though the laws have changed where now a lot of the knees are now 10% instead of 30-40, then you cannot be reduced to anything less than the 40. They will continue the 40 because you've been what they call stabilized in that rating and the service connection of that rating for 20 years. And I always tell people 20 years is a long time.
Yeah.
20 years is a very long time. And this doesn't go by your rating date, it's your service connection date. So if, say for me, I was service connected for a knee since what, 93, 92, 93. And if I never did anything else, then here I am, clearly 30 years later, I could go in and apply for that. And it's not going to be touched other than see if it's gotten worse. But a lot of people want to roll the dice on that.
Yeah.
I always advise, especially the 100%ers.
I was going to ask you, what's your metric? Because I know you use that metric for when you recommend.
When I would
Yeah.
file.
So go ahead on it. Yeah.
The only time I will ever tell anybody at 100% that's been that secured, whether it be 5-10 years, the only time I would ever reopen that is if there were a life-threatening condition that is going to warrant service connection.
You heard that? Life-threatening.
Life-threatening. I mean, your knee replacement might, you might want to go ahead and have the knee replaced or whatever. That's fine. But if it's not life-threatening, leave it alone. You're going to get the naysayers out there where my buddy says that I could get ED. Honey, go get your pills and treatment at the clinic, because you open it up for ED, which is a stipend. You can receive a stipend for that. But as I explained to one veteran, is that $100 worth that $4,200 that you're getting? Because I have seen that happen. Veteran was 100% for his heart for 9 years, 8 months. You slide into your stabilized year. My brother said I could get ED. I said, dude, don't do it. I said, you actually had 2 bypasses on your heart. Your heart's ticking like an 18-year-old. He wouldn't listen. I refused to file it because I'm not going to be responsible for you losing that money. He goes into another office. They filed it. He got his ED, and they took his heart from 100 to 10. And then he comes back to me. I was like, dude, I told you. So he went from getting at that time, it was $3,700 down to 213.
Wow.
Therefore, he lost his eligibility for dependency. So he
Mm-hmm.
lost his wife on the award. She lost her champ VA. He lost the exemptions on his vehicle and his property. All that for $100. So you need to wait and do the pros and the cons when trying to reopen these claims, because yes, you can lose. A lot of folks will, oh, my leg hurts, my whatever hurts, my whatever hurts. Pain is not compensable. Live around it, go get your treatment through VA. But when it comes to the claims, and that's why I still, where is my book? My computer's sitting on it. I still read my CFR, Rodney. I still
Yes.
read it. It's either that or look at the Housewives. I'd rather read
Read the
that.
CFR.
but but yeah, it those stabilized ratings, and there's wiggle room around that as well. So again, if it's something, I would also say if it's something greatly impacting your life. I know a lot of veterans actually suffer from sleep apnea now. And sleep apnea can either be direct service connection, meaning you suffered, treated, diagnosed while on active duty, and now here you come to VA, or it can be listed or deemed a secondary condition. So I would also encourage veterans, because I know there's talks in legislation, the VA trying to get sleep apnea down as a presumptive condition under the PACT Act. It has not been signed as of yet. However, there are studies out there that prove that sleep apnea can actually come from the mental health condition. So those that suffer from PTSD or any really depression, I've seen depression, excuse me, and PTSD. Those studies lead the top two conditions that can also be connected to sleep apnea can be connected to. And one of those studies was actually done by the VA. And I have it somewhere. But so it could actually be listed as a secondary condition. And that's another big part of getting increases, things like that, are secondary conditions. And those are conditions basically that, either continue from a primary.
And Ramona, another kind of a misconception when we're talking about, navigating the VA disability ratings, and appeals, is that I hear veterans, especially those of our persuasion, I hear veterans talk a lot about, once they get a VA disability rating, not going to the VA. As if, it's like, well, no, 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 don't go to the VA because, they'll find out that, maybe your back don't hurt as much as you, whatever. Can you touch on that just a moment?
Yeah. I excuse me. I will tell a veteran every time, go to the VA for your service connected conditions. That's it. Because again, VBA, your comp disability, your payment system, they can pull those healthcare records at any time. At any time. And just like I said in the scenario before, if they see where, hey, you've not been going for this, they can call you in. If you're not going for treatment, then they can conclude that your condition has bettered itself, and that's when they're going to send you for those exams. Now you can go to your to your private doctors and all that kind of stuff. However, again, it would be, I don't understand veterans that just don't want free health care. I don't understand that. I mean, this is not your granddad's VA now.
Right.
And I was telling somebody that just today. VA healthcare takes 100% care of me. I now
Okay.
get healthcare for my back here locally. The VA pays for my treatment here in the community, community care. So therefore, I don't have to drive an hour and a half, or down to Atlanta for my care. Plus, it catalogs that. It catalogs it. Another big thing when you're talking about these terror screenings and PACT Act and all this kind of stuff, the VA is keeping, they're running the ahead or the lead on the research to improve upon these listings and presumptive conditions and creating these registries that are driving those benefits to be added on to all of this stuff. So you take the Camp Lejeune veterans; they have a uh, the research is being done through the Department of the Navy in conjunction with the VA and Department of Defense, and those records are all in there. So if we've got all of these, um, let's just use our favorite place, Fort Bragg, there, Rodney.
Okay.
So you take it, if you were at Fort Bragg between 82 to say 92, and you were exposed to this demographic of Ardennes Street and Long Street, then guess what? If they get enough of those veterans that come in there and they see where, what, we've got male pattern baldness coming in, then the VA's going to keep churning that research to see how many veterans that came through this time frame have male pattern baldness. And then guess what? That's how the laws get changed. So I would encourage veterans to enroll, whether you like VA, whether you have TRICARE, Blue Cross, no matter what. Let the VA drive the bus on that, just for the research, for not just the veterans that are here now, but the future veterans coming up the road from us. Um, and again, it just makes sense. VA, if you're service connected and you're going to one of the either your primary care appointments or your VAMCs, what doctor pays you to come? I tell you one, VA, they pay you to come to the doctor.
Give me my $32
Okay, for real.
every time I go.
I, I'm going to get my acupuncture tomorrow. Send me my $37.10. Okay, because yeah, but that's one of the biggest benefits. Is it is all encompassed right there. Short story that's really not even related to my service connected disabilities. And Rodney, you'll remember when I told you, I developed a condition called Ramsay Hunt syndrome in 21,
Yep.
paralyzed half my face and caused 3 blood clots. I stayed in the VA healthcare, VA hospital there in Decatur for a week. And you're talking brain scans, nuclear scans, labs every hour, this, that, and the other. And guess what? It was all right there. Now, had I used private medical care, I would have had to have a referral here, a referral there, a referral. I'd probably be dead right now. But everything was housed right there, one big bubble. I had a team of doctors coming in and a team of doctors going out, and they all talked to each other. And guess what? Nobody. Okay, if this doctor needed a test result from something, they go in my records. They didn't have to call over here, get a medical release from there. So that's the beauty of VA healthcare. Um, I personally, advocate for it. The parking is horrible, but I kept hearing, well, they need more handicap parking at the VA. Dude, everybody that comes there and works there is handicapped. So,
Exactly.
so, but
Okay.
that's just
Yeah.
my talking point on that. I've never had um any major issues. Yeah, you'll hear the people complain that they can't get an appointment, but there are actually 8 specialty groups within the VA.
Yep.
And if you're between 1, 2, and 3, yeah, you're kind of gonna get prioritized. But even if you're one, anybody 50% or more is a one, group one. You still might have to wait to get certain treatment. But if they can't get it within 60 days, then they're gonna possibly try to get it through community care, and you get care throughout,
Right.
within your so many miles from your home.
Exactly. And then a couple more before I get completely off of this topic, and like I said, go into the importance of accreditation
Hmm.
for veterans, seeking to, get their benefits. And that
Right.
is, I want to give a scenario. So going back to, ratings and eligibility and sustainability and all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, this scenario. Okay. So you, like you said, it's not, you can't say, well, I've been 80% for 10 years, so therefore I'm safe. It's not not your rating,
Mhm.
when you got 80%, 10 years ago. It
Mhm.
is the individual
Condition.
condition. And
Correct.
so let's do it this way, because I know this is going to come up. All right. So, okay. So a veteran has been 80%
Mhm.
for this one condition, PTSD. All right. He was that. He's not 55, but he got 80% when he was 35. Now he is 45, which is 10 years. It's been
Mhm.
full 10 years on that 80%. Okay, is that 80% basically protected?
No, it's not
Okay.
protected until it's 20 years.
Oh, 20 years,
20 years. 10
not
only,
10.
yeah, not 10. 10, you'll hear the tens only because of the 100 percenters. If you're 100% for 10 years, that secures death benefits no matter how you die for the surviving spouse
Right. The
or
DIC.
or
Yeah.
or family member. Correct.
Hmm.
That's the 10-year rule. And you would think, yeah, I'm good, but no, it's
Right.
actually the 20-year.
The 20-year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So because I know that's going to come up, because
Yeah,
I've
it
been.
definitely will because I've heard that myself.
Yeah.
And you would think, hey, I'm good, this and that and the other, but one of the things I've always told veterans, laws change.
That's
Laws
true.
change. The VA's not gonna send you a letter and say, hey, when the needs changed, oh my goodness, there are folks, and I would always tell them, look, you're needs depending upon the condition at that time prior to I want to say 2018 or 19
Hmm.
they had already the stat max was 30/40, and so if somebody came in with a 40, say 2 years ago, hey, well, I'm having issues with my knee, da 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 da, I want to file for increase. I said, unless you're going to have it replaced, you better leave it alone. You better leave it alone. I said, because they're not going to tell you the old 30 is now, guess what, the new 10. In order to get an increase on these, you have to have either ankylosing or at least the continuous use of at least two assistive devices. And most of us that have bad knees, other than the ones of us that have artificial knees, you don't walk around with your braces and your cane at all time. You don't.
Right. Right.
So those are the types of things the VA is going to look at. Um, it's kind of like the CPAP and sleep apnea. The law has changed on that. It used to be as long as you had a CPAP, oh, you're going to come out at 50%. No, now it's all about pulmonary function tests. And so
Hmm.
if you're sleeping with a CPAP, guess what? You're not walking around with it on, at work. You only sleep with it. So there are little things like that, little finite things in the law that there, again, VA doesn't send you, hey, Mr. Butler, we just want to let you know that this was updated because you're service connected for your shoulder. No, they don't send you those types of updates. So people need to really be careful um, when refiling. When refiling, yeah. And again, I would see VSOs always filing because I said, as a training director, I would look at people's stuff and I'm like, why did you file for this? Well, the veterans wanted to. Okay, but you're the advocate and you're the VSO. What did you tell them about this? Well, I didn't tell them anything. The veteran wanted to file for it. I said, okay, but the law has changed. All right. So if this knee, which is now 30% under the new guidelines and the new rules, is going to be 10, what are you going to do? Okay. And guess what? I would track those. And I'd look at those CMP exams and be like, yep, 10%. And guess what? You see those notification letters and they're, due to rule or law, da 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 da, da da da. Guess what? Now you're 30. If you've not had it for 20 years, your 30 is now a new 10. And so it's and you probably heard it, Rodney. Oh, they just want to take my money, they just want to take
Hmm.
this and take that.
Hmm.
No, but if you're being greedy and you're not doing your actual due diligence to know your benefits, or go to somebody that again is accredited, that should know and should be advising you, you're going to get the short end of the stick.
Great segue. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So before we let the good people that follow the Black Man's Roundtable know how they can reach you, get in contact with you, Ramona, accreditation. Let's talk briefly about the importance of accreditation, and then we will let them know what they all want to know. How can I get to Ramona?
I'm going to have to get a new phone number. but accreditations is kind of like taking your car to a certified mechanic. If you're driving a BMW, you don't want to take it down here to Mako and let them work on it. You want somebody that is certified, that knows the ins and outs of that vehicle. And it's just like accreditations when doing your VA paperwork. You want somebody that the Office of General Counsel in Washington, that's who oversees the VA and the accreditations, that that person is properly trained and certified by them to do this paperwork. And I kind of look at it, I always tell people like this: any idiot can fill out a form. But if you don't know the ramifications that can come behind that form, then yeah, you can do a lot of damage. And you see a lot of these agencies that have popped up now. I think there's one called Reed Medical, Vets Guardian, and Vets Insider. All of these types of places. Google their websites, and then scroll all the way down to the very bottom to the fine print, and you'll probably see somewhere on that page where it says not accredited or non-accredited representatives. The VA da 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 da. And these people, they're going to charge you out the wazoo for their, for services that you can do yourself. Um, Go into, like I said, my former employee, Georgia Department of Veterans Service or American Legion, VFW. These are, excuse me, these are accredited service officers. These are people that have been vetted by the VA and the Office of General Counsel to and certify that these people are properly trained to do this work. They are properly trained to advise you on the ins and outs, nooks and crannies, behind the door stuff with the VA. And hopefully you'll get a good one. Um, I took my accreditation very seriously, and again, doing this for 18 years, and working my way up from VSO1 all the way up to training director. I felt confident that everything that I did and stood behind, that veteran was well informed of the potential of reductions, well informed of the potential increases, and the benefits that were included once they got an increase or even service connected. Period. My tagline was providing 360 degrees of service. And that means I got to make you whole. If you're coming here, this is your starting point. It's my job to get you all the way back here. So you are now a whole veteran. You are well informed of your benefits, whether it be healthcare benefits or preparing yourself for, your eternal life. And that would include your family. So a lot of veterans are not even aware that once they hit 30%, if they are married or have minor children or what the VA deems a helpless child or a disabled child that is incapable of self-support, those children need to be included on their award. They have no benefits at that time, but that's additional monies for that veteran. And you'd be surprised at how many get those notification letters. Yay, I'm going to get $1,600 a month, and boom, they never read up under there. It says we're paying you as a single veteran, no dependents. So you definitely, my goal as an accredited rep was to ensure that that veteran was well informed, if not over informed, of their benefits. And that's the importance of that. A lot of people, I just heard a very tragic story from one of my friends. I have a Marine veteran that has some neurological deficits, if not dementia or Alzheimer's, and his wife paid a person $3,400 to file their claim. And this person is just like, seeing one of these people standing on the side of the street with a sign. I said, what made you give this person this money? And she said, well, her husband worked at the VA before he died. I said, again, why did you give this person that money? Well, she said she could help me with the claim. What did she do? I'm really not sure. And so again, it's buyer beware. This person would not return the phone calls, would not return the emails. And I'm like, okay. So buyer beware when it comes to filing those claims. A lot of these agencies get the person's e-benefits or vets.gov account, the passwords. That's how they do it. And even though I'm doing, I don't mind doing claims from the private sector, I don't want anybody's private information.
Right.
I would entrust you, hey, go into your account, see if they've issued you a letter, see if they've done this, because now I don't have access from the outside to see inside the VA wall anymore. But I know pretty much how the claims are going to work. But I would not give anybody $3,400. I wouldn't even give you $3. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying. But to someone that has never been formally trained.
Right.
So just because they, the bells and whistles, and you'll hear a lot of these, oh, they got me this, they got me that. No, what they got was your passwords, which include your direct deposit information, your DD 214, your mother's maiden name, your social security number. And guess what? They're getting your money. They're getting your money. And I just, I don't like it. But again, is buyer beware.
Buyer beware. Ramona, thank you so much for that. And before we get into how people can reach you and all of that, I
Mm-hmm.
want for the listeners, for the followers to know that you are definitely in transition.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we don't even know what information you're going to give them as far as how to reach you. But what I want for the followers to know is that you can also reach Ramona through us. You can
Mm-hmm.
also reach out to the Black Man's Roundtable at gmail.com. To send us an email. You can DM us on the socials, as well as anything that she lets you know in as far as getting in contact with Miss Ramona Roper. With that being said, Ramona, let them know how they can reach you.
Well, my email address for right now, like I said, thank you for that, Rodney, because it's just been a month
Yeah.
since I stopped officially working and retired, if you will. But my email is GAPEECH1068 at charter.net. And that's for right now. I will establish a better email for just a business email, if you will, at a later time. It's just as of right now, I have not done that. I have literally been relaxing and chillaxing for for a month, and it is very freeing. I will say that. And I do appreciate you still having faith in me
Oh
to
man.
come and join you guys. This is a very, very good platform in which to get those
Thank you.
benefits out, especially to the African American community and things like that. So I welcome those emails, and anytime you need me, I'm here for you.
You already know. And so we're looking forward to hopefully squeezing another one in November. So
Okay.
Ramona have even more information for you guys then.
Sure.
November around, Veterans Day, around that week is when we try to do our second one on this platform with Ramona. So definitely be looking out for that one. And Ramona, once again, thank you, thank you, thank you. You love our veterans. You are a veteran. You are a
Mm-hmm.
veteran at heart.
Mm-hmm.
I say, Ramona, kind of like I do. You don't wear it so much on your head or on your
Mm-hmm.
on your, your shirts and all that kind of stuff, but you definitely wear it in your heart. And
Always.
that's exactly the way that I am. And so I always appreciate talking to you. You know that,
Mm-hmm.
fellow 82nd Airborne Division paratrooper,
Oh,
all the way, ma'am, all the way.
all the way.
Airborne.
Hoo hoo.
Thank you, Ramona. Anyway,
Thank you, Rodney.
absolutely. You can catch the Black Man's Roundtable the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the Black Man's Roundtable's Roundup with Rodney and Rodney the second Thursday of the month, and the Black Man's Roundtable Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby the first Thursday of the month. All episodes drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace. Hey, family. Check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have a show idea or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please, like and follow us on social media.